Hello and welcome to this episode of Poetry Thursday, where we dive into a new poet every Thursday, modern or historical, read some of their poetry, and hopefully have a discussion in the comments about its meaning, what it might imply, the imagery, what you liked or disliked about it. Today, I have chosen a couple poems by Sylvia Plath. I realize she is quite a famous poet, especially for the modern 20th century. Very iconic, very well renowned. So maybe you have heard of her. Maybe you have even heard some of her poetry. The ones I'll be reading today are probably pretty popular, to be perfectly honest. But I feel like most of her poetry is pretty famous. Yeah, she is considered one of the most dynamic poets of the 20th century. Sorry, I just want to put a trigger warning before I continue quickly that the discussion of Sylvia Plath's life and ultimately her death will involve themes of self-harm and unaliving. So if this is something you struggle with, please do be mindful. You can skip ahead. I will put the timestamp down here to where you can just skip ahead to if you would like to skip this portion. And if you are struggling and you're not sure who to reach out to, or if you don't have anyone that you can contact, I will leave some phone numbers and links down below. Just please don't struggle with this alone and reach out to someone. Just to go over a little bit more of her life, she was born in Boston to her mother and father. Her father was absent for, I think, all of her life, or pretty much all of her life. And one of the poems I will be reading today, which is called Daddy, sort of has a lot of imagery towards father figures or authority figures and how she sort of viewed them in her life, particularly the way that she idolized her father as a child and how that view changed over time. I think it can also be viewed more towards authority figures in general in her life. She was in a relationship with someone, I believe Ted Hughes was his name. I probably should have done much more research. Poet Ted Hughes. Yes. Okay, we're gonna continue. She, I believe, did complete her degree at Cambridge University, where she met Ted Hughes, who she married and had 2 kids with. I didn't read tons into their relationship, but I remember the video I watched in school because there was a movie done about her life. Obviously, when you're that famous. And in the movie, their relationship was portrayed as fairly rocky. And I know that she did have a lot of mental health issues. Sylvia Plath did suffer from severe depression throughout her adult life, especially. And after her divorce in 1962, she was left with the care of her 2 children, which just became too much for her. And ultimately, she did take her life at the young age of 30. I believe it was after she had written Ariel. And this, of course, was not her first attempt at this. She had tried previously at the age of 20, but was not successful. And did, I believe, start a program of recovery, which at that time was eventually turned into the Bell Jar. So I don't know about anybody else out there, but I do find sometimes in my darker moments or when I'm really struggling mental health wise, there's this fine line that you sometimes tread between this intense creative boom that you get from it and the intense burnout that you can experience from it, where you just have no creative energy or gumption at all. But from these experiences, I do find that turning that into art can sometimes be therapeutic, whether it's through painting or drawing or writing. In Sylvia Plath's instance, it was through her poetry. I also am a writer. I write fiction and I write nonfiction, and I even have recently dabbled into a bit of poetry, despite the fact that I don't think I'm very good at it. Of course, you will never become good at anything if you never try to do it. Never make an effort to improve, you will never improve. And with that, the first poem I am going to read by her is called Daddy. I do not, unfortunately, have my tablet with me here today, so I will just be reading straight from my computer, which means I will kind of be back and forth here. My apologies. Daddy by Sylvia Plath. You do not do any more, black shoe, in which I have lived like a foot for 30 years, poor and white, barely daring to breathe or a chew. Daddy, I have had to kill you. You died before I had time. Marble heavy, a bag full of God, ghastly statue with one gray toe, big as a Frisco seal, and a head in the freakish Atlantic where it pours bean green over blue in the waters of beautiful Nauset. I used to pray to recover you, Achoo, do, in the German tongue, in the Polish town, scraped flat by the roller of wars, but the name of the town is common, my Polak friend. Says there are a dozen or two, so I never could tell where you put your foot, your root. I could never talk to you. The tongue stuck in my jaw. It stuck in a barbed wire snare. Ich. I could hardly speak. I thought every German was you, and the language obscene. An engine, chuffing me off like a Jew to Dachau, Auschwitz, Belsen. I began to talk like a Jew. I think I may well be a Jew. And the snows of the Tyrol, the clear beer of Vienna, are not very pure or true. With my gypsy ancestress and my weird luck, and my Tarek pack, I may be a bit of a Jew. I have always been scared of you, with your Luftwaffe, your gobbledygoo, and your neat mustache, and your Aryan eyes, bright blue. Panzerman, oh you. Not God but a swastika, so black no sky could squeak through. Every woman adores a fascist, the boot in the face, the brute heart of a brute like you. You stand at the blackboard, Daddy, in the picture I have of you, a cleft in your chin instead of your foot, but no less a devil for that. No, not any less the black man who bit my pretty red heart in two. I was 10 when they buried you. At 20 I tried to die and get back to you. I thought even the bones would do, but they pulled me out of the sack and they stuck me together with glue, and then I knew what to do. I made a model of you, a man in black with a Mein Kampf look, and I love of the rack and the screw, and I said, I do. So, Daddy, I'm finally through. The black telephone's off at the root. The voices just can't worm through. And I've killed one man. I've killed two. The vampire who said he was you and drank my blood for a year. 7 years, if you want to know. Daddy, you can lie back now. There's a stake in your fat black heart, and the villagers never liked you. They are dancing and stamping on you. They always knew it was you. Daddy, you bastard, I'm through. God, her poetry is so good. Obviously, you can see from the themes and the words, there's the language and the specific word choices she uses, as always with poetry. You always have to be so careful when you're picking your words because you are trying to tell a story in such a short and concise and very, like, as they would say, poetic, right? Verse. So I know this poem has been probably deconstructed on every blog and in multiple YouTube videos already. So I won't really get into the like detailed nitty gritty of it, but you can definitely see obviously the authoritarian viewpoint of how someone seems big and you seem small just from the description of like I have lived like a foot, right? As if they are like stepping on you. And again, all of the association, especially to the like swastika, to Nazis, and the intense like power imbalance between the Germans and Jews at that time. Because again, she lived I think 1932 to I guess 1963, something like that. So she was alive during World War II, so she would have had, at least from, an American living at that time, she would have heard on the radio all of what was going on and would have experienced all of that stuff. So I know there has been, I think, a lot of controversy since then about the way that she describes herself as a Jew and her father or the authority figures in her life as Nazis. But I do also feel it's important to take in the context of the time that she lived in and the things that she would have experienced as a woman specifically, and also as a woman going through World War II and what she would have heard in the American media. So I do feel, especially when you have such strong feelings towards something, you tend to want to pull a very strong emotion and visual from your reader. And I feel like she's very successful in that, especially with that one description. And then a statue frozen in time, and then a vampire sucking the life out of her, and then eventually she comes to terms, and it ends on a very angry note. But if you think about how her dad wasn't around in her life, he died when she was younger. She never got a chance to really know him or meet him, so he was just this figure that as a child she idolized and then found out wasn't really a great person. So I feel like the anger she expresses in this poem also especially really comes through very raw and organic. And just that last line, "Daddy, daddy, you bastard, I'm through." It's just so meaty and it just holds so much weight at the end. It's like you've gone on this journey, this emotional journey with her through this poem. And instead of having a happy ending or a light, weighty, like she's come to terms with things, it's like this intense angry ending of like, I'm done, forget it, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's my 2 cents on it for what it's worth. The other, I feel like I picked a bunch of her angry aggro poems today. I didn't do that on purpose. The other one I wanted to read is called Eavesdropper. And I don't know if there's been lots of controversy around this, but it seems like it was written about one of her neighbors when she moved into a specific house, and she accused or thought the lady and her husband were always eavesdropping and watching her, judging her. I don't know the details. I was not there. I do not know Sylvia's experience, and I do not know the experience of her neighbors. But I feel like the imagery and the word choice she uses in this one, especially because it's quite a bit, it's a much shorter poem than some of her other ones, especially Daddy. You really you can feel it. You can feel the emotion in this one. Eavesdropper by Sylvia Plath. It's crystals, a million ignorance, attendance, And at this next step I shall unloose from the small jeweled doll he guards like a heart, the lioness, the shriek in the bath, the cloak of holes, eavesdropper. Your brother will trim my hedges, they darken your house, noisy growler, mole on my shoulder, to be scratched absently, to bleed if it comes to that, the stain of the tropics, still Uranus on you, a sin, a kind of bush stink. You may be local, but that yellow, god awful, your body one long nicotine finger. Again, just the way she ends the poem, I just really want to highlight the last verse. You may be local, but that yellow, god awful, your body one long nicotine finger. Not only does it give you this really intense imagery of how she views this person, but it also, again, ends on this very scathing note. And obviously, the whole poem is quite scathing, very accusatory, very angry. So, always you can write out those feelings in verse with very aloof imagery that tells you everything without telling you anything. And also the thing, your brother will trim my hedges, denoting that there's someone there at her hedges trying to listen and eavesdrop on her life and view her life. Noisy grower, mole on my shoulder to be scratched absently, to bleed if it comes to that. It's just very, when you think of a mole, you think of someone who is coming into your life to chatter, to find out all your secrets and then chatter them to other people, right? Even when she talks about the stain of the tropics, the stain, just the word stain, and using Uranus, like urine, like pee, a sin, and then bush stink. It just gives these such intense, not just feelings in your body or images in your mind, but she's also engaging your sense of smell, right? She's talking about the smell of pee, this gross smell of the rotting foliage underneath the bushes. There's a smell that it has sometimes that's just not nice. I don't know what bush stink is. Maybe I should have looked that up. And even the long nicotine finger, when you think about how if you're a smoker, it will turn your fingers yellow and your fingers will develop this specific nicotine smell. So it's through her poetry, she is engaging all of your senses, which is, something that I wish that I could do in my poetry. Of course, I've written 3 poems, so. And I didn't go to school for poetry, and I, in fact, didn't even get to finish my degree because capitalism, and it costs an atrocious amount of money to go to university. But I digress. That's me going off on an ADHD tangent. But yeah, if I can do one thing, is to just think of poetry as this, just to be able to engage a reader's senses in the poetry and have them experience that, I feel is just not necessarily a gift, because of course you through practice can learn how to do things, right? The more poetry you write, the better you will get at it. But I just feel that the way that she comes across in her poetry, and specifically the 2 poems I read, again, are just so raw and organic, and you can really get a sense of her feelings through it, and not just her feelings, but she's bringing you on this ride, engaging your senses, and not everybody can do that. It takes a good poet to be able to do that in their writing. Those are the only 2 poems I had picked out to read by her. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comment below. in the comments below. If this is content that you like, please do like this video. Click that subscribe button, hit the bell notification if you want to be notified of when I post, which is Mondays, Mondays. Wow, I don't even know my own post schedule. Mondays, Thursdays, and every other Friday for now. Hopefully that's it. If you are so interested in my spicier side, spicier stories, spicier content, including the lingerie aspect, please do check out my Patreon. Photo sets drop on the 25th of every month, and depending on what tier you are, which of course are all literature themed, you can just take a gander, a little peruse, if you would like to support me. And yeah, that is it for this video. I will see you guys all next Thursday for another poet. Bye! Thank you to everyone on my Patreon. Your support means so much to me, and I couldn't do this without you.